it used to be just enough to like be online as a brand, which was like still like a little bit revolutionary. And I think that they're kind of still used to sometimes like that being the marker of being like a modern brand. And now that's base level. Like that is not even at all making you unique at this point in time.
Hey everybody, welcome again back to Radical Content. Eric Gray, and I'm super excited about our guest today. Her name's Aubrey Burrow, and it's the first time I've been able to interview someone that I used to work with. They used to work on my team at Universal way back in the day. She's gone and done amazing things, and we're going to talk about all of it today. But Aubrey, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
I am doing great. How are you?
I'm doing good. Is this crazy that we're that we're doing
No,
this?
this is truly wild. Like you said, this is such a throwback. It's like nearly 10 years ago, which makes me feel like incredibly geriatric, but whatever.
Yeah, when I think of Aubrey, she came on young in her career. Now she's just a grown up, bad to the bone professional, and we'll talk all about it. But she was young in her career. She was helping
Yeah.
us write tweets and engage with fans. And one of the things that I loved about Aubrey is, and you'll see it today, she came at things with this creative mind that's just it's not normal, and it's such a talent. And she was able to do so many things for us in kind of establishing Universal Parks Twitter voice and things like that. So it is weird for you to be back. We won't go back to those stories. There's one thing I will say that I really remember and I liked. It wasn't as much of a story, but and we'll probably do this a little bit today. Um, when there was a trending meme, or if Aubrey had an idea to kind of cover a meme, I'd always have to say, "Okay, you're gonna have to explain this to me."
Yeah.
So, do you still get that? Do you still have to explain memes to the I don't know
So
what you call me. I won't say it, but
I've kind of it's kind of become like a role reversal for me. So at this point now,
oh, okay.
I am the person that people come to with the meme ideas, but like I will say they don't really have to explain them to me very often. I'm
Right.
usually
No,
like
you're connected.
for sure, but no, every once in a while there's something that I get hit with that I'm like there's a Gen Z slang word that I came across recently called like gyat, which like it's like GYATT. Like it just every once in a while like something gets hit and I'm like you're gonna have to send me like five TikTok links on that and I need to reconsider it.
Yeah, that's a new one for me. So here's the thing. So radical content, and I think this topic's going to fit today really, really well, is all about brands or agencies or creators, people that are out there trying to push things out into the world that are different. And the goal of them is to create attention and to build audience. And a lot of times we're talking about like long form storytelling. We're talking about podcasts. We're talking to creators who are building audience through TikTok and things like that. But we're also talking to a lot of brands that are just doing things differently. And I think the theme of this episode is going to be how to use social media to do things differently
Yeah.
to build a rabid fan base. And that's totally what we're all about. And so that's kind of what we're going to dive into. So there was recently an article written that you were a part of on Marketing Brew, and they talked about. So we'll kind of start out of the gate. You work a lot with Nutter Butter and Sour Patch Kids. You've worked a lot in a lot of places, but those are two right now that were kind of called
Yeah.
out in that article. And it talked a lot about things like the graphic design is my passion meme, and it kind of talked about that. It talked about deep fried meme, which I still had to look up, and I'm still trying to figure out what that is. But at the end of the day, it feels like there is this intersection of internet humor that is sometimes deep internet humor, sometimes maybe not so deep, maybe deep for me, that exists out in the world today. And then if you can capture it in a pretty compelling way that you don't get called out on it and you're kind of a part of it with the audience versus kind of, I don't know, cringy and ruining it, you can
Mhm.
really kind of build an audience. So that's my summary of it. I want you to tell me what you think this style of social marketing is.
Yeah, so like the whole graphic design is my passion thing. It can actually be traced back to a meme that's like, I think it's like over 10 years old. I think it's like from 2013. It's like a simple graphic of like a papyrus font with like a copy and paste frog, and it literally just says like graphic design is my passion. And from there, this kind of whole inside joke of like when you're just using like Microsoft Paint to like do graphic design. I did air quotes there, but maybe not can't not see that. But it has kind of like been around for a while, but I think that what's a little bit new right now is brands tapping into that. And I think that something that I've done is sort of like be a part of that like wave of change where brands are actually kind of intentionally going into this space. But like you said, an extremely fine line to ride between doing it as a brand and crossing over into like cringy territory. So something that I've had to really prioritize is, what does that look like for us, and not overcrossing that line to the point where people are like completely upset about it.
Yeah, so talk a little bit about the two brands that we talked about. So I went today and spent some time on Nutter Butter's Instagram and Sour Patch Kids Instagram. I think I get Sour Patch more than I get Nutter Butter.
Yeah, that
But
makes sense. Yeah.
talk to me a lot about maybe first and foremost, kind of, and not maybe their audience, because you're not here today representing those two brands. You kind of help support them from the agency, but talk about the importance of the audience that you're trying to reach. Right, solely that's really what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to come up with something that's relevant to this age
Yeah.
group, this demographic, this psychographic. So what's the audience generally speaking when you're doing this type of social, and why does it relate to them?
Yeah. So these brands have a lot of similarities, but they also have a lot of differences in the ways that we approach them. I think the biggest similarity is that like Gen Z crossover. So both of our brands are very, very heavy in that audience of like that Gen Z territory. But the big difference between them for me is like you have a brand like Kids where like people are standing this brand. Like they have so many inherent fans that are always going to be really into this product as a brand as big as that. I think you and I, when we worked together at Universal, we had a lot of that. Just like there are fans baked into certain brands, and it's
Mhm.
like you have to do certain things to.
It's the
Uh,
best, by the way, doing social for brands
oh,
that have
it's
fans.
like a little bit of it feels like a little bit of a shortcut sometimes, but in like the best
Totally.
way possible.
Yeah.
um, but then you have a brand like Nutter Butter that like people have heard of Nutter Butter, but I don't think anybody is like coming around here and saying like I stand this cookie like in the same way that they do for certain brands like Sour Patch Kids. But to me, that's one of the most fun challenges is where you can take a brand like for me like recognition is really all that I need. Like as long as people know what this thing is and you can come across it on your feed and be like, oh my god, what is this like coming from the real account? Like I want you to do that double take, and from
Yeah.
there it's just like very, very easy to me. Not well, easy is not the right word. It is a strategic process to build that fan base.
Yeah. So how do you do that a little bit? And I don't know how much you can go kind of inside of kind of how you think about this, but there is a certain type of person, a certain type of writer, a certain type of creator that understands internet culture, understands what these audience wants and needs are, understands the unique attributes of these channels and of these platforms that people are existing in. How do you find a way to kind of mold that together in a strategy and really in an operating model that's creating all of this content? Because I mean, you guys are really doing like joke posts every day, and I say that with the
Yeah,
highest
yeah,
respect. You're
yeah.
playing off of things and doing joke content every day and entertaining the audience. How do you find a way to do that? Is it in the people? Is it in the process? Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, I think it's in everything. It's definitely a team sport, and it's funny that you say like it's like joke writing because I literally like to call our meetings like writers' rooms sometimes because what we really are doing is sitting down and collaborating. We're taking an idea and we're trying to push it and we're trying to make it as funny, as engaging, as relatable, as shareable as it can possibly be. And it really starts with an element of social listening. So whether that be, going through our own comments and like looking for branded mentions and seeing the kind of things that people who already love these brands are talking about, or on the other hand, it's kind of building that persona of who you think the fans of these brands are or could be and figuring out like what else are they into? Like I want to know like what is on the weird timeline of the person who is probably obsessed with Nutter Butter, but I imagine them to be like might be like a little bit of an internet gremlin who's like that guy on Reddit. And and from there we're like, okay, what's the weirdest thing this person has seen on their FYP in the past couple weeks and how can we implement that on Nutter Butter?
I love. For some reason, I'm seeing like an audience slide, and it's like, all right, our target audience today is the internet gremlin.
I've literally called them internet gremlins in a deck for sure.
All right, so that actually opens up something that makes my mind explode. You're selling this in. You're pitching this. You're talking to marketing executives. You're talking to
Yeah.
leaders, both at these brands and probably other brands in your career. How, like, there's people that are listening to this, that are social media managers, and they're like, this sounds awesome. That sounds impossible. But
Right.
you
My
found some
client would
ways to,
never. Yeah.
right, right. But you found some ways to do that. So what have you done to be able to kind of, ultimately tell that story of why we need to go in this space and then be able to come back around and be like, told you so, right? Like that you've been
Yeah.
able to do that a little bit.
I will say, at least when it comes to my current brands, it is such a testament to the agency and to the clients themselves and the model that we've been able to build here. I work through Dentsu Creative, and we work on a team that handles all of the Mondelez snack brands. So it's anything, well, actually Mondelez, but a lot of people know it more as Nabisco. So, but like that's
Yeah.
probably what would come to mind.
Yeah.
But it's anywhere from like Oreo, Ritz crackers, Chips Ahoy, My Brand, Sour Patch Kids, and Nutter Butter, and just that all of like the strength and numbers that these brands have really contributes to just like all of them approaching social in a completely unique way. But we have this really close relationship with these clients that allows us to just take these really big swings. And there's such trust embedded in this model, and we work so closely with them. But we've been doing so for I think nearly 5 years now, and
Yeah.
that has just led to these really huge wins, really big swings. And at this point, like I would say I kind of very rarely get like a lot of client pushback in meetings, but that is
Mhm.
just like, again, it's a testament to the history that these two companies have with each other.
I love that. And I think a lot of it, anytime you're able to do something bold, whether you're in the brand, like say a Liquid Death or Red Bull, there's got to be a lot of, or if you're at an agency side, right, for you with some of these Mondelez brands, there's got to be a lot of trust. There's also got to be a lot of clarity around audience, right? So you got to know that,
Yep.
talk to this audience. You can't do it in the same way that you've always done these sorts of things. You got to come at it a little
Yeah.
bit differently. And just boldness, like willing to kind of rock the boat. And sometimes, I can't think back to sometimes back at Universal days where I was probably texting with a group of people about a tweet that went out and I was a little worried and Aubrey's like, oh, Eric's stressed, and then we had other people on the team that were stressed, but ultimately everything was fine and it really worked.
Yeah.
Right. And if you can
Yeah.
find ways, to do that. So let me have you open up a big topic that I talk about a lot. I'm interested in your take. If you remember back to our days, we used to talk about things that were shareable, searchable, clickable, some of these dumb things that I used to say as a leader on the team, that you probably rolled your eyes at. But the idea is there's tenets of connecting and entertaining an audience to build an audience from a brand standpoint. Why is it that you think that a lot of brand marketers and brands in general still struggle to figure out how to connect and how to engage? And I mean, look, if you go on social right now and you just start scrolling branded content, it's going to be like 95% trash, right? Still today in 2024.
Yeah.
What is it in your mind that that brands and or maybe even agencies that are trying to fight, push those brands can't kind of wrap their heads around?
Yeah, no, I think that it's an old-fashioned unwillingness to change in my mind. Like especially these legacy brands that have been doing what they do the way that they do it for so long. They're more used to these like extremely traditional forms of marketing. And it used to be just enough to like be online as a brand, which was like still like a little bit revolutionary. And I think that they're kind of still used to sometimes like that being the marker of being like a modern brand. And now that's base level. Like that is not even at all making unique at this point in time. And I think like what I really specialize in is core, like pure organic social. And I think also what a lot of brands fail to do is really understand the difference between organic social and paid and earned and all of these like various different tracks. And when it comes to organic, it needs to be like reflecting exactly what these consumers are seeing on their feeds. And you can't just slap any like product photo, like studio photography onto your feed and expect it to perform as well as a meme does. Like people just they don't necessarily want to see that from brands anymore. They're going to social to be entertained, to be engaged. They're not really necessarily looking to be sold to. So you kind of, as a brand, have to learn how to camouflage amongst what they're already seeing.
Yeah. It's so good, and you're speaking my language, and I'm sure a lot of others, people that live in the organic space. I think sometimes the organic space can be, well, I mean, looked down upon, right, as small or optional, right? We got paid, we got TV, we got out of home, and if you want to go over here and talk to your fans, go crazy and have some fun, but at the same time, when done well, right, and that's to say this when I was in radio, when done well, we can be as good as anyone else, build audience, trend. Become viral with one word, one gif, one meme, one idea that's just relevant, timely, and works for the audience. And I still think that there, in some ways, there's a lot of pushback, and there's just not a lot of people like Aubrey's out there, right, that are kind of fighting to kind of showcase that. And so just money and attention goes to the things that are scalable, which is a lot of times performance marketing and digital display and things like that. Take me inside the creative process a little bit. So you talked about the writer's room. I don't know if this is something that you do daily, if this is something that you do weekly, if this is like a monthly planning session, but walk me through a little bit and maybe take me inside of maybe even an idea of one that you guys have done in the past that's been successful Just interested in how that whole system works.
Yeah, so we strategize content both day to day, and also we do like more forward thinking planning. Like, so it will do it either when it comes to like a month, we'll approach every month with like a content plan. But one special thing that we do there is making sure that we are leaving at least half of our content space for reactive in the moment content. The stuff that is going to be what is happening right now. How can we get in on it? How can we be one of the first brands that's doing so? And so that to me is like the cornerstone of a strong social strategy, at least organically in the year of our Lord 2024. You kind of need to be mixing those two things. And like evergreen content is great. Like, I mean, memes are evergreen too. Sometimes like I have a whole folder on my computer that's just like evergreen meme formats. But you also have to leave that space to be reactive and make sure that you're giving your team enough time where they're not so bogged down by these evergreen ongoing asks that they don't have time to just drop everything and hop on like whatever the latest trend is.
Yeah. No, I love that. All right. So before we got on, you started talking about some April Fool's shenanigans.
Yeah.
So take me inside of a piece of content, and it sounds like this one is the most. This won't be probably as active when this airs, but still, just trust me right now.
Yeah, I was
it's
just
a
going to say,
thing.
when does this air? Because I don't want to blow it before we announce. Yeah, so something that we're working on right now with Sour Patch Kids is an April Fool's Day activation.
Yeah.
And something that I have found in the years of doing dumb little April Fool's Day gags on these brands is that by the time that you get to April Fool's Day, it's so tired. Like
Oh my
it is
God.
just like, it's fake product after like, and it's just that one single post. And it's like, obviously, Heinz is not collaborating with like Milano cookies, you know, like it's like we know that that's not
Right.
something that's happening, and we've been trained to expect that. And something that I have really been working on with my team, and this started last year, and then we sort of perfected it, I think, this year, is really, really committing to the bit in a way that brings April Fool's Day to life days before, so that there's enough room where people aren't necessarily sure whether or not you're joking. So we got together in that writer's room and started thinking about fan insights, like various things that we could tap into. And something that we uncovered is that a lot of people are already making the joke that like once you are a Sour Patch Kid, you grow up to be a Sour Patch Kid adult, or like the existence of Sour Patch Kids implies the existence of Sour Patch adults, or whatever meme format you want to put it in. And so we thought that that was hilarious. And then we started talking about what does a Sour Patch Kid or what does a Sour Patch adult look like? Like they're probably wearing a suit. Like they're probably very sad. They might be like, if we're thinking about what a pack looks like, it's probably it's probably all like they live in grayscale. So like when we made a fake pack for this, we made it completely grayscale. It had little kids wearing suits with frowns on them, and the tagline said, "First they're sour, then they're sad," on it. And that enough would have been kind of a cool April Fool's Day joke. But something that I love when we talk about really committing to that bit is how can we blow it up even more? How can we make people talk about this and really extend this as a bigger moment? And what we did with this one was we created an announcement. And in this, we were sort of like, and similarly to how when people will make like a Notes app apology or some sort of like text announcement that they post to their Instagram feed, we made an announcement that was like, we've come to the conclusion that the time to kid is over. We need to grow up. It's time. Like we have to move forward. We used a ton of like business cliches, like onward and upwards, Sour Patch adults. Like we are from here on henceforth, we will be known as Sour Patch adults, and it's time to grow up. And that alone,
did you memorize all that, or are you reading it right now?
Oh no, I just like kind of have it like a little. That's not even verbatim. That's like close-ish.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we posted that a couple days ago. It started to gain some traction across all of our channels. And then from there, it just sort of started to catch on. And we just posted a TikTok yesterday with that announcement, plus with this mock-up of a fake, very grayscale, sad little pack of it. And that TikTok is encroaching on 6 million views at the moment.
What?
I would love to see what it is when this is published, but 6 million views for me is actually an all-time career best. So I'm super proud of that. And that just all comes from this like weird little insight that tapped into a way that people were already feeling. And the client had complete buy-in. They thought it was super funny, and they just let us ride with it.
The human insight or the audience insight, you called it fan insight. I love that, right? A lot of times brainstorms and social teams will be like, okay, what do we want to talk about? We had content strategy. What's the thing? And to say, I don't know, for like, let's just not be that random. What are unique things about them right now in this moment, or of a date that's happening in the future that we can really, really discuss? Because you're trying your best to get inside the audience and their head and trying to find a way to
Yeah.
be, it's like the word relevant in social teams has been ruined. And I feel like it's got to be changed to like, I don't know, like super relevant, because it's like, yeah,
Yeah.
relevant just is so cliche and it doesn't really mean anything, but it's like hyper relevant, super relevant. How do we
Yeah.
get to that point? And
It's
so I love that.
relatable. It's
It's
like, I feel like
so,
that's what it is now.
it's so relatable, but it's also like, again, a lot of marketers have ruined some of these words. It's like being actually relatable, right? Like that's the thing that I would kind of say. And then the other thing I wanted to point out there is, social today is so much about cut and paste, copy and post, right? It's about how can we, we're going to do it, right? We're going to cut this video up into like 12 different pieces of content, which is great and fine and good when you're trying to reuse and recycle. And I'm totally down with that strategy for the right business and the right situation. But this idea that the best idea still is going to win. Having some ingenuity with your creativity is still going to win. And the thing that I've thought about, and I haven't talked about on this podcast, but I think this is the best kind of example to bring this up, is marketing used to be about how can you turn nothing into something, right? How can you get attention by just getting a group of people in the room, understanding the audience, understanding the culture in the world, and coming up with something that people are like, oh, that's awesome, or oh, that's funny, or oh, I can't believe they did that. And it's been lost a little bit. It's been lost with technology, even AI a little bit. I think people are it's just about like create a lot of stuff, get a lot of stuff out there. And so I love this idea that you guys are just in there banging and, pulling the threads of this onion to try to get this perfect idea. But at the end of the day, it's still a really simple idea that you attach to.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love it. It's so good.
Yeah, no, that's the best ideas. They have to have that level of simplicity to them. If you have to explain it in more than like 3 sentences, it's kind of lost already, in my opinion.
So I talk a lot about being always on as a brand, right? It's something we talk about for our agency, Maverick Content Studio. It's something I used to talk about when I was on the brand side. And I don't mean like you have to post every day or the algorithm will screw you. It's not like that fear-based stuff. It's more about, look, if you want to build an audience, you got to show up consistently. You just do. You got to be there in their feed. How do you talk about that? How do you explain that to people when you're trying to talk about, because when I go on these channels, like y'all are active. You're there. You're there daily, probably sometimes multiple times in a day. How do you explain that idea of being always on or being ever in their feed as a strategic lever for a business?
Yeah. So there's a minimum number that we hit every month, but like that number, it's not by any means like Bible. Like we must hit this exact number and we may not go over it. More oftentimes than not, we are almost always going over that number. And that is just treated as a kind of like a benchmark for us to really just go out and find all these opportunities. So when I think about always on, I think about like, and you never want to be like the person who's like being like a toxic boss, being like, you're always on, like you better be checking your feeds if there's anything to jump in on.
Yeah.
But like every once in a while, there's something so special that it might be happening after work hours and you just have to do it. Like some of the biggest wins in my career have come from like being on my own personal Twitter. Like I could be out like at like a bar with friends or something and be like, like this is just, it's something that we have to do right now. And a really good example of this kind of recently was with Sour Patch Kids. There was a big mention of Sour Patch Kids on the TV show. It's a very Gen Z show called The Summer I Turned Pretty on Amazon Prime. And I don't know, you're probably not familiar with it.
I've been totally watching that. I've been just binging it.
I was about to say, like, I know you have a daughter, like she'd probably love it. But, like,
she's 10. Well, maybe when she gets older.
Oh, she's so close. But
I'll let Sawyer know. I'll let her know.
Yeah, let her know that I recommend The Summer I Turned Pretty on Amazon Prime for her.
Make a playlist for her, Aubrey. That'd be great.
Oh my God, I would love to. It's a huge moment though with Gen Z. It was a big show. I mean, even me, like I'm, a 29-year-old teenager and I was watching The Summer I Turned Pretty before this even happened. But in like the season 2 finale, TLDR, there's a love triangle in the show. There's Team Connor and Team Jeremiah. They are brothers fighting over this girl, Belly. And in the finale,
what's her name?
Her name is Isabella, but they call her Belly.
Got it. Okay. That makes more sense than Belly.
You got to know the lore, Eric.
Yeah, totally.
And so from then, there's a scene in the finale where they're in a convenience store and the brothers are arguing over what is Belly's favorite candy. And one brother says she loves Sour Patch Kids, like it's her absolute favorite. And the other brother's like, no, she likes Swedish Fish. And the other brother's like, no, that tastes like candles. She loves sour. And so just from there, all of the fans started using Sour Patch Kids versus Swedish Fish as a way to represent this love triangle between these two brothers. And so we tapped into that immediately. Like the day that the finale was happening, we dropped everything and just live tweeted the whole thing.
Oh my
We went
God.
like in a long thread on Twitter and just got out all of our thoughts. Sour Patch Kids equals Conrad, so we're obviously Team Conrad. And we also had
Obvious.
the added benefit of Swedish Fish is also on our team internally. So Swedish Fish is Team Jeremiah.
This
So we
is like the
also,
perfect scenario for you guys. This is like,
I know it
it's
was
almost like
amazing.
y'all paid this Prime to do this for you.
We didn't. It was just in our feed, so we were like, go, like
Yeah.
immediately. We didn't run this by the client before we jumped on this. We just knew that we needed to be agile on it and that we knew that
Yeah.
we had that trust and could do it. And this ended up being a huge moment for Sour Patch Kids. They're still attached to the fandom. Even with our April Fool's Day activation, we've got people commenting on it, being like, "What does this mean for Team Conrad?" Like people are
Yeah.
so attaching Sour Patch Kids to this fandom at this moment. And this is actually kind of like it might be leading to bigger things with the brand as well, like attached to that show that might be coming just from this. And but just you just have to do it sometimes,
No,
and it pays off. When it pays off, it
yeah.
pays off tenfold.
Yeah, and kudos to you and your whole team. That sounds awesome. And there's many a place, Universal. We had those moments, right? There's many a places that see that thing come across and they're like, we could never do it. We could never get it this approved or talk to that. It sounds like y'all have some freedoms, which is wonderful, to kind of operate in a very trustful way. But you mentioned something that I think is really important. When you're talking about someone that's in, we're not talking a lot about career and stuff like that today, but when you have someone that's in this career, you just got to be plugged in. And it doesn't mean you're working
Yep.
70 hours a week. Like no boss should expect you to do that, but it's just got to be kind of naturally part of how you exist in the world. And you're just kind of consuming things that might intersect. And when those moments intersect, to kind of be able to put the bat signal out and be like, team,
Yeah.
we have a thing. We have to do this thing. Who's in with me? And to have a team that's willing to do that is so much fun. I love that. That's
There's the
another
whole
great
joke that's
example.
like every day I look at the big screen for 8 hours and then I go home and I look at the small screen on my phone. Like you're just constantly plugged in.
If you were talking to somebody that was wanting to kind of execute this kind of strategy, right? There's it's part humor, it's part being tapped in, it's a lot. It's part knowing the channels, knowing the audience. What would you say to someone that's like, man, I would really like to, and again, pretend like it's a brand that potentially could use this, because look, this is not for everyone, right? There's some
Yeah.
attributes. I think there's some tenets in here that everybody could use, right? But there's an element of what you do and an area of expertise that I think is so special. But what would you tell them if they're like, man, I'm trying to get this started. I'm not sure we can sell this up, but what you've done is pretty amazing. What are some things that you would tell them to do first and foremost?
Social listen. Like always go to social listening first and foremost. And there are all of these fancy tools that do it, and those are great, but also like still my favorite way to do it to this day is just searching things on Twitter. Like it is just like there's so much native keyword searching that you can do. Sometimes I'll search like Sour Patch Kids like bad hate or something if like I'm trying to find people talking negatively about the brand. And it's just there's a way to just very natively find these ways that people are naturally talking about things. And that's where your seeds start. And
Yeah.
that's like where you uncover things like people are making the Sour Patch Adults joke, or people are really standing the brand and attaching it to Team Conrad from The Summer I Turned Pretty. Like you have to do that listening, and you have to just make sure that you are really uncovering any sort of brand truths that the feed is giving you.
I often talk about that. If you want to be a bold brand, you got to hire people that can be bold, right? Whether it be creatives or writers. What do you have to have from a talent standpoint to run a team like this?
Yeah, so we are so lucky with the team that we have. We have myself. I am a social strategist. Above me, we have an associate director who handles a little bit more of the higher up things on our team, and then I have a direct report who is a social media manager. Honestly, a shout out to him. His name is Zach. He's incredible. And then we also, in addition to that, we have internal TikTok creators who are 100% dedicated to creating content and strategizing content on TikTok. And then we also have a more holistic content creator who is able to it's sort of like our modern version of a graphic designer. Like they do that part of it, but they do so much more. They do
Yeah.
photography. They are able to tap in for all of these various moments. But we kind of work all together as this little machine that is able to handle pretty much anything that might come up with the world of organic social that we want to jump on.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so we talked a lot about wins, but when you're doing this kind of content, you've got to have some fails. You've got to have some swings and
Oh
some
yeah.
misses. Do you have any that come to mind that we're like, man, we thought this was a thing, and then we tried it, and the fan base just like revolted for an hour or two?
This is so dumb. But the thing that jumped to my mind, about a year and a half ago, I was on Wheat Thins, which is another one of our brands.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I must have been like sleep deprived or something, but something came to me and I was like, feet thins. What if it was feet thins? And which is like,
Oh
like,
my
first of
god.
all, it was totally off strategy. Like, it was not a good
Oh boy.
idea. But I was like, but it rhymes. Feet
Uh,
thins. Like,
that's pretty much all you need.
yeah. And I was like, this is gonna go viral. Like, we're gonna do feet thins and it's gonna go crazy. It didn't. It was like we posted a foot with wheat thins like lodged in between every toe crevice, and
Oh my
it
goodness.
tanked, as of course it did.
All right, we
You
got to
can,
find a way.
I'm not
That's
gonna
a
tell
good
you
one.
how, but you can find it on Twitter pretty
All right, you can
easily.
find anything on Twitter. And congratulations. That's easily the hardest I've laughed on this podcast.
Incredible.
Feet feet thins.
Yeah, rip feet thins. Not my
Oh
best
my
idea.
oh my gosh. All right, so to have this kind of mindset, and to come up with these kind of strategies and these wacky, zany, but wonderfully strategic ideas that you guys do, you gotta look out and try to benchmark yourself against other people. Who are the other channels, or even if you know people, but really channels that you're following to kind of say, oh, they're doing it great. What can we kind of pull from that and pull from here? What
Yeah.
what are the channels that you follow and or brands?
Yeah, I think as of late, probably my absolute favorite brand social account is Drumstick. They have been just absolute, and it's a brand that you wouldn't expect to be doing it either, but like
Yeah.
they are killing it. Like my favorite thing is when you have a brand that might be like a little bit smaller, doesn't necessarily like, have the same sort of share that like, say like an Oreo or even like a Sour Patch Kids might have, but they just kill it so much on social that they're like crushing us in like engagement. And it's just so interesting what they do. They've really tapped into this evolution that's been happening on TikTok with like a little bit more simplified content formats, a lot of like carousels. It's the thing where TikTok is becoming Instagram and Instagram is becoming TikTok, but all of a sudden photos are really killing it on TikTok, particularly like these carousels. But they're really doing, like, going back to what I was saying about reflecting the way that Gen Z is actually talking on their timelines.
Yeah.
And they're doing so in a way that like they're completely crushing. Like everything that they post is doing so well. I think they have like 1 million followers, which like you wouldn't expect a
Oh
drumstick
my
to have a
gosh.
million followers on TikTok, but like shout out to them because they're doing it. And that's
Yeah.
not based, I don't think that's necessarily based in the product itself, although like I love a drumstick, but it is so,
Yes.
so organic, social driven. And that is like the kind of brands that I really respect the most.
Yeah. I love it. And but you're staying in this like area of like packaged food, right? It's like
Yeah.
you're like,
Oh
these are
God,
the
I'm so deep in CPG food world. You have no idea. It's like,
all right, so to wrap this up, a couple quick ones. The first one is, you are made to market to Gen Z, and you're a pros pro when it comes to social. What do you kind of see as the future a little bit, and you could talk tactically if you want to, like, oh, this thing's new and hot on this channel, but you can also kind
yeah.
of talk philosophically, like, where are you guys trying to go to, or what are you seeing in kind of the future horizon that we've got to all collectively thinking about when it comes to connecting with this Gen Z audience?
Yeah, no, I think honestly what's kind of scary right now is that Gen Z is a little bit aging out. Like it's not even going to be Gen Z so much necessarily. I put Gen Alpha on a deck for the first time a couple months ago and like I almost threw up. Like I was like, are we seriously like already going with this new I can't even think about what this means yet. But like there have already been the oldest Gen Alphas I think are like 13, 14 now. Like they're coming. Like you brought up your daughter earlier.
Yeah,
She's a Gen
she's
Alpha.
10. Yeah.
Is she using the internet? What's on her feed? Like, I'd love to know. Like,
She is not on the internet. She does not have a phone. She has no feed. She has a gizmo
All
watch
right.
that she can
You
call
know
mom
what?
and dad. But it's
That's probably the
coming,
right move. Yeah.
Aubrey. It's coming.
Yeah. And they are already like they're making things. There's a trend that you should probably link if you want to, called Skibbity Toilet, which is the very first like truly branded, like not branded, it's definitely not branded, but like it is Gen Alpha culture, like through and through. And then you have in the comments a bunch of Gen Zs even being like,
What?
"What is happening to Gen Alpha? Are they okay?"
Oh,
Like
because
it is
every
literally like a
because every
every
generation
generation is like, "Is the
after
one under us
judges the
okay?"
one that's coming up, right? What is Skibbity
Exactly.
Toilet? By the way, we're going to do another segment. We're going to bring you back regularly, and you're going to talk to us about the internet trends. Are you down?
Yeah,
All right.
sure.
She's like,
No,
not really,
skibbity
but
toilet is like a head that's like spitting in a toilet, and then it's like skibbity skibbity. I can't really do an impression. You're gonna have to look that one up, but
that's
it's
hard to
it's
do on a podcast.
coming. And like we talk so much about Gen Z, but like give it 5 years and we're talking about Gen Alpha, and like that to me is we have to just remain like agile. We have to like always be looking at what's next. You have to, be looking a couple years ahead. I think between that and then like I guess we're gonna have to figure out something to do with AI. But I haven't, like, that for me is like that gives me nightmares at this point. But we're gonna maybe cross that bridge when it comes. So
Yeah, at some point, someone's going to take everything from Nutter Butter and put it into an AI and then say, spit out 200 pieces of content that are new original memes that are kind of built off this, but they're not this at all. And then our
yeah,
heads are going to pop off.
exactly. Yeah. It's it's terrifying and it's exciting all in one package.
Yeah. Well, I think that, we've talked a little bit about AI on here. And what I've kind of always said is just learn it, understand it, use it where you can, but just because it's not going away. But I do
Hmm.
have some fear of not it replacing jobs, but just what it can do, beyond what we're able to fully control. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. We'll see. All right, I've got one last one. So way back in the day, you used to work on the team, and you and some other people on the team would bring ideas and memes to me, and sometimes I'd ask for to be explained. And sometimes I'd say no to those ideas. So now you're the person that's in that seat. It sounds like, and so I want to know, how do you say no to some of these ideas that maybe they're
I
like
know.
too far, they're too internet culture, and you're having to go, I can't believe I'm having to say this, but here's why not. So tell me about that.
Honestly, a no, a full no for me is very rare. Like I have builds, I have, I have guardrails, but like when it comes to like, as long as it's not like wildly brand unsafe or something that could
Sure.
like, get us in trouble,
Yeah.
I'm extremely open to, are we allowed to cuss on this podcast?
Sure.
Out and find out method. Like
Yeah.
I am so in support of like the best things happen when you're just willing to test things out and try. And the
Yeah.
worst thing that can happen is it flops, but things are going to flop constantly. Your best
Yeah.
ideas are going to flop. Like
Yeah.
it is so much just like it is a territory of trying it out. And
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm not, I definitely say no less than you said to me. So
God, you're waiting for the end of this podcast to deliver that one. No, it's good. We had a different brand, Aubrey, that you're dealing with today.
no, we
And
did.
we
We
had we
did.
had
Yeah.
different leadership, but I understand. I understand. All right, so one other quick one to close out is, the idea of this whole podcast is, both the brand of Maverick and the idea of radical content is to think different and to kind of go against what most brands are doing and to find ways. And you've obviously proven why you're doing that and how you're doing that. How do you think about yourself? What do you think kind of makes you a maverick in this world of marketing? And what do you like about that? It's just something
Yeah.
we're kind of trying to close this all the shows out with is what makes you a maverick.
It might sound a little bit lame, but like, for me, I think I come from a comedy background, low key. Like the way that I got into this entire marketing world was I started a satire publication in college, and I wanted it to get big, and through that, I taught basically like just taught myself how to do social strategy for it. And when I was applying for jobs, I was like, oh, I think I know how to do that. I think I could be like a social media person. I guess I'm already doing that, right? And then that's how I got involved at Universal. And that was also really grounded and like a comedic approach to social. And still,
Yeah.
like, what I've done and what I think I continue to do is really just take this like engaging comedic like approach to all of these brands that I think has like really made what I do pretty unique.
Yeah.
And that's
Well,
why it's a writer's room.
Yeah, no, I love it, and I appreciate you sharing that, and I do remember that before you came on board at Universal, some of the satire stuff that you had done. So, there's congratulations, like,
Yeah, thanks.
what you've done and what you're creating in your career is so cool, and I'm so, not that you need this from me, but I'm just really proud of what you've done, and I'd say thank you to what you did at Universal, like what you helped us build at Universal 10 years ago. There's still parts of it that are kind of still continuing today. And so,
Yeah.
that should feel awesome. And we couldn't have done what we
Yeah.
did without you then, and what you're continuing to do and how you're touching these other brands and helping these brands tell stories and connect with audiences is so great. And I just appreciate all your insight that you've shared with us today.
For sure. You want to hear something funny, actually?
Sure. Go for it.
Do you see on my gallery wall the black thing there, like the black frame?
I do. Yeah. Yeah.
That is my first ever career viral tweet. That is a Universal tweet, and it is what you guys gave me on my last day at Universal, and all of you have signed the back of it, and it is still like, it is just as special
cool
to me as it was to you. Like, I am so grateful. It really was the jumping off point of my career. So
yeah, that's cool.
You.
What was that moment? What does the viral mean?
It was a Shrek tweet.
I knew it was the Shrek tweet. I knew it was the Shrek tweet. Man, that made me nervous. But man.
Oh,
I bet it's still
grounded from that tweet.
Yeah, I bet it's still one of the. Well, it wasn't just the tweet, right? It was the late night commenting that we kept going and kept going and kept going. That was when I got nervous.
Yeah,
but it's still one of probably the top.
It's number one.
It's number one still?
Our friend Jimmy Kunkel confirmed that for me a couple months ago. It's still number one.
Good for you. Aubrey, this has been super fun. I really mean it. I won't bother you too much, but we should kind of do a check-in a couple times a year on what's going on in social and internet trends. And I know you've met Lindsay. Lindsay's going to come on the podcast with me too at some point, and so maybe we can kind of do it all together. So this has been a blast. Can people follow you? Do you care if people follow you? Do you want them to follow you?
I am Obsbur pretty much everywhere. So it's AUBSBURR. I am most active on Twitter though.
Awesome. Yep. Cool. Well, thank you, Aubrey. Appreciate the time. And thank you, everybody, for listening to Radical Content. Another episode in the books. Subscribe, follow, do all those things on the social, and we'll have more content coming up real soon. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.